Okay, welcome once again and to another session on the study of the book of Exodus. All right, and let's begin with a word of prayer. Father, we ask you this evening as we study Exodus chapter 25 all the way down to 31, and you will help us, Lord, understand your word, that we will see your wisdom, that we'll see, Lord, and the wonderful things that you have done for us. We pray, Lord, that we understand the significance of this important section of the Bible, and not just of the book of Exodus, but of the entire Old Testament and the entire Bible. We ask you, Lord, to open our eyes and help us, Lord, and to not only hear with our ears, but also hear with our hearts, and that we will learn and the importance, Lord, of allowing your grace and your presence to be a very significant part of our lives. So we commit ourselves to you at this time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. First of all, I hope you have at least tried to read the text from chapters 25 all the way down to 31. If you have not, that's fine, that's okay. But things will be easier for you if you have at least read it once. And then I have given some what we call notes, and some of them may not make sense to you, or you wonder what is the significance of these notes. But hopefully, and tonight after the session, some of those things can go back and read it again. You'll find that it will make a little bit more sense. Okay. Now, my initial plan was to go through all 7 chapters, and because this section is a unit by itself. And throughout the day, I kind of vacillate between trying to complete all 7 chapters in the hour that we have, and maybe slowing down a bit because, you try to cram everything and might end up losing everything. So we will see how it goes, and we'll take it chapter by chapter. And then if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Maybe I'll stop after every chapter and give time for you to soak it in, and maybe ask questions relevant to the things that discussed or that have been shared, I spoke about in this chapter. And maybe that will see, I will probably not try to rush things, but just take time to go through this very important section. First of all, let me go back a review in the book of Exodus. The book of Exodus starts basically with God's plan to deliver the Israelites from the bondage, their time of slavery in Egypt. Okay, God chose his servant Moses and sent him to confront Pharaoh. The whole 15 chapters is about the rescue, saving God's people from a tyrant and confronting the gods of Egypt, showing that there's only one God and who really matters. This is not abstract theological lesson. It is not that God is saying that there are no other gods, but those other gods don't stand a chance to the God of Israel, Yahweh. And of course, Pharaoh, who is probably the biggest and most important person today compared to Donald Trump. And he is not going to say yes, and he has all these gods backing him, and he has all this power, but God humiliated him and destroyed his army and delivered Israel after sending 10 plagues upon Egypt. And then God led them, and one of the first things that God said to Moses was that, you will know that I've sent you when you come to this mountain, and you will lead the people here. So even though it might seem to us that logically the first thing that after delivering the people of Israel from Egypt, bring them all to the promised land. No, that is not the plan of God. Okay, even though it would take a few days or maybe just a few weeks, God has much more important business to deal with the Israelites, the people of God. He intends to make a covenant with them, to solemnly make a covenant and agreement that he will be their God and they will be his people. So after a few days of traveling to the wilderness, complaining about no water, complaining about no food, God provides the water, God provides the food, and God did not scold them for making those requests or those complaints. God graciously, generously led them to water and generously gave them meat and bread in the wilderness. And finally, they come to the mountain of God, Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is very important because that was the place where God came down and to meet the people of Israel. And it was a kind of terrifying experience. The mountain shook, the mountain was smoking, and there was lightning, there was thunder, and all that. And Moses went up to the mountain and to meet God. The people were told that the mountain is sacred. They cannot come near. And only Moses went up. And then they were asked to prepare themselves for God to come down to speak to them. And when God came down to speak to them, he gave them the 10 commandments. They were so terrified with God's voice, and they said to Moses, we don't want God to speak to us directly. So you go and speak to God, and you come and tell us what God wants. So then Moses went up after 7 days and came down and told them, okay, after the 10 commandments or 10 words, these are the guidelines, these are the judgments, these are the case laws, or these are the details of the covenant. Then basically that was given the book of the covenant. And now we come to the part in chapter 25. Chapter 25 begins what we call a section when God doesn't just want to give the people laws, to give the people guidelines, to give the people instructions how to live as a people of God. He wants to dwell among them. He wants to be a God who will dwell among his people. But God is a holy God. The people will sin, they are sinful, they complain, they are very human, and they forget very quickly. And so how can God live among his people? And the instructions for making a tabernacle was God's solution. That tabernacle is some sort of miniature Mount Sinai, so to speak. Mount Sinai is a place where God came down, is a holy ground. God speaks to them, and God gives them instructions, and the people know there's God, and they saw the glory of God. But they cannot remain on the mountain in the desert. They have to move on to go to the promised land. And The tabernacle was the way that God would ensure that he will go with them, preserving his holiness in the midst of people. Okay, so God has to prepare a way where he can dwell safely, not for God, but for the people, and they will be saved from God's holiness. So the whole instructions of the tabernacle has two main objectives. The first one, the most important, is that it's a place where God's presence is among his people. Secondly, it is also a vehicle where God will meet his people and God will speak to them, and the people will come and meet God and have fellowship with God through the priesthood. And that is why all these are done. And that is the reason probably why Derek asked, and he's not here yet, or don't know whether he'll be here. But he asked the question, why so detailed? And all the instructions, because this is very, very important. And they are building God's house, temporary, and it is a portable temple. It is a tabernacle. It is able to be taken from place to place. It's a movable shrine. It's a movable, we call holy place. But it's the God of Israel. He's the God of the universe. And you just don't build any house that you want. You must build a house according to God's instructions. And that instructions has very significant and meanings and significance. You'll find that in the tabernacle, there are 3 sections. There is the most holy place. There is what we call the holy place. And then there is the outer court. It, in that sense, symbolizes or basically a miniature and a representation of Mount Sinai. Only the top of the mountain is the most holy place. Only Moses can go. So in the most holy place, only the high priest can go inside. And then in the middle place is where it's also a holy place. Only the priest can go. So, and at Mount Sinai, only the leaders, those are consecrated, can go. The rest of the people are below in the mountain. So you have this tripartite tree. One scholar called this symbol of graded holiness. The people of God are supposed to be holy, but there is most holy, and generally the people are still also holy. They are not. They are the people of God. And outside the camp still there's a place called clean, and then place unclean. So that is the kind of God is a holy God. So you cannot just come into God's presence like that. So these instructions of giving the tabernacle, of doing the tabernacle, is for that purpose. Scholars have also noted that this is, in one sense, a new beginning. And in chapters 25 to 31, you will find that God, the phrase, the Lord said, it occurs 7 times. And these 7 times recall back to the 7 times that God spoke in Genesis chapter 1. Some will say there are 8 times actually, but traditionally the Jews consider it 7 times. And basically, so the 7 words that were spoken at creation that brought about the new world. And this is also the 7 words that created a tabernacle and basically created a new creation, the people of God. We also see that the whole structure of chapters 25 to chapter 40 and do represent what we call a kind of replay of what happened in Genesis. So after God created the world, so the people, Adam and Eve, sinned against God, rebelled. So after Moses gone up to the mountain to receive the instructions from God, God gave them the instructions of what we call the tabernacle and all that. He came to the mountain. They found the people worshiping the golden calf. And God's anger came upon them and was about to destroy them. But God forgave them through Moses' intercession. And then they were allowed to rebuild the temple. So you find that in Genesis, you have the creation. Then you have what we call the sin, and then they were allowed basically to continue, even though they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And so there is a kind of theologians have seen this a kind of a pattern. This is a new creation, and many scholars also see that the whole and Genesis chapter 1 and is portrayed as a kind of a cosmic and a temple. And we are not just studying Genesis, so I'm not going to go into that detail. And so basically, you have either Genesis represents the story of Genesis represents a temple, and the temple it works both ways. All right. So let's now come to okay, maybe before we go to the text, I give you this thing here. All right. The 7 words in Exodus 25:31. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. And I will send this to the WhatsApp group. And there is an element introduced. You find that the first word, offerings for the tabernacle, and there's only one word, that's the whole thing. Then chapter 30, you have verse 11, 17, 22, 34, 31, and 1 and 2, that's next 6 words. And there are the possible symbolic meanings, and symbolic meaning is guesswork, and basically it is, and some was wondering, this section seems rather not very what we call systematic, but it is what it is. Okay. And this is not just one scholar, but most Old Testament scholars see this kind of a situation that you have. Right. Okay. Maybe I'll stop here after introduction if anyone has questions on this. Okay, no? All right, then we will go to the text. Okay, where is my... Okay, I don't see it. Let me try again. Okay, all right. I see now. Okay. So going back to chapter 24, Moses entered the cloud as he went up on the mountain, and he stayed there on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. So evidently the instructions that was given took a long time. And so 7 chapters, 40 days, 40 nights. The first thing God said to Moses, tell the Israelites to bring me an offering. You are to receive the offering for me from everyone whose heart prompts them to give. This is important. This feel-free offering. And God is not the God and desires and what we call, you must do this, you must do this. We find that He's a gracious God. He saved the people, and they are to willingly give to God. There's no compulsion. Whatever the heart prompts them to give, let them give. Okay. Remember when they came out of Egypt, they plundered the Egyptians. They got all the things they demanded and as back pay and things that they have, and they brought them. Now you are to receive offerings from everyone whose heart prompts them to give. These are offerings that you are to receive. There are metals, there is fabrics, there is wood, there is materials for oil and for incense, and there's gems for the priestly garments. So you'll find that these offerings, these items are expensive items. These are not ordinary items. You are going to build a house for God. He is the heavenly king. You don't simply bring stuff that you don't want and things that you play around. And I remember when we went to US and we went with nothing. And so when we came to the house and we got an apartment, some members gave us things that they don't want. We received about, I think, 3-4 televisions. None of them work. We had to put in the storeroom, and because we cannot cut or throw away. And they will give. Sometimes people, I remember in that time when I think basically our second child, and there was a rich person who gave us, I want to give you a cradle. We thought they were going to give a nice new cradle, but it was an old rusty cradle that they don't want. They want to get rid of it. God doesn't want that kind of a thing. Okay. Gold, silver, and bronze. Blue, purple, scarlet, fine linen. Okay. Blue, purple, scarlet, they are expensive dyes. Okay. This is orang kaya, it's not the people. It's the people blue, purple, scarlet, fine linen. And linen is made from flax, and it is very fine quality, not cost from China, things like that. Goat hair, ram skins dyed, and another type of durable leather. This durable leather, fine leather, and possibly hides of aquatic animals. Some say is the sea cows or the dugong or the dolphin, and which is very durable and waterproof. And you'll see why it's that important. Then acacia wood. This is durable hardwood that is found in the desert of Sinai. Acacia wood is found throughout the world, and in Malaysia we also have acacia wood. But this is the wood, and there are different species of acacia wood. There are probably maybe about 70, 80, or even 100 over, and different types of acacia wood. But it is durable. It is resistant to what we call pest, what we call damage, things like that. So it is a hardwood. And then olive oil for the light, spices for anointing oil, and fragrant incense. Then precious stones, all other gems. And then verse 8 is important. Then have them make a sanctuary, a place, a holy place for me, and I will dwell among them. So God says to Moses, I'm going to dwell among the people. John reflects this, and that in John chapter 1, verse 14, the word became flesh and dwelt among us, and there's Jesus. Okay, New Testament is no longer a tabernacle, is Jesus. Jesus is the personification of God and tabernacle. Make this tabernacle and all its furnishings according to the pattern I'll show you. Now, what did God show Moses? It's an interesting question. And scholars have debated this. Did God show him a heavenly tabernacle? Some things that the tabernacle was built is an earthly representation of the heavenly tabernacle. Hebrews seem to indicate that. So did Moses see the prototype? Okay, the actual sanctuary in heaven, or did God show him a blueprint Okay, and or did God just show him an image of what the tabernacle looks like? Whatever it is, Moses was told, build this tabernacle and finishing exactly to the pattern that will show you. Okay, so this is not a tabernacle that you want to build anyhow you want to do that. In one sense, it is very sensible. Okay, the Agong wants to have a palace, and you just don't build any way you want. There are various detailed specification. What is what is what? Where are the gardens? Where are the fountains? Where are this? Where is the throne room? Where is the bedroom? Where is all that? So this is God's house, and this is I will dwell among them, and this is where God will live, and where God will be with the people. So it must be the exact pattern. Okay, this is important. This is detailed. Okay, you will notice that in chapter 25 to 31 is the instructions given, and then chapter 35 and to the end of the chapter of the book, you have a repetition of the same details, but the repetition is that they made it. Why repetition? And probably it is to show clearly that the Israelites carried out instructions to the detail. They followed exactly. It is to show that they did not make alterations. They did not make what we call modifications. Sometimes, and the architect draw the blueprints, and the contractor comes to cut costs and to cut in and use different materials. And I think even Calvary Church, and which was the architect designed, when they started build, they modified certain things. They did use the materials the architect and specify because too expensive and things like that. And they pay the people says no. They did exactly what God tells them to do. Okay, now, so the instructions given were very specific, and we might think that this specific kind of a thing is so detailed that we can actually know exactly what it looks like. However, if you look at the instructions, there's still a fair amount of ambiguity. Okay, and so if you look at the various videos and the various models or images that people use to construct models of the tabernacle, they don't look exactly alike because they are how you imagine it based on instructions can be a little bit difficult, but probably not when Moses was what we called overseeing. I think he will make sure that it was exactly what he saw. All right, but it was not given to us. And there will also be called this section tabernacle. Sometimes the details are not all the details that we have, because in Leviticus and in Numbers there are additional details that were specified. Okay, so this has basically the basic blueprint. You want to know more about the entire tabernacle, Exodus is not the only place to study the tabernacle. You want the full study of the tabernacle, you must study in connection with Exodus 25 to 40, Leviticus, the whole section, the whole of Leviticus, and also Numbers, at least to the first 10 chapters. So this is not the full description of the tabernacle and its operations and the procedures and all that. To do that, you have a much longer study. So there'll be certain frustrating times that details are missing. All right, but sufficient enough to give us the big picture of that. All right. Chapter 25 has to do with three main items. Okay. The ark, the table, and the lampstand. Okay. And then chapter 25, 26 is the tabernacle itself. Okay. You also find that instructions sometimes given You will say, how come, and you have the ark, you have the table, and you have the lampstand. But then the altar of incense was done not later. But how come it was not given here? We are not told why, but we'll come to it and we can give some suggestions as to what it is. Probably the best thing is, and one scholar particularly says, that evangelical scholar, the first part of the construction or the instructions had to do with making this place as a fitting place for God to dwell. And then later, the other instruction is the other furniture that is done to make it a meeting place between God's people and God. So this has to do with physically with God's dwelling place. So the most important element, so we start with the most important thing. The most important thing is not the tabernacle. The most important is the ark. Okay? And the ark is basically a chest. So make an ark of acacia wood 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubit and a half wide, and a half a cubit high. Overlay pure gold, inside, outside. Make gold molding. Cast 4 rings over it and fasten on the 4 feet with 2 rings on the side. Then make poles of acacia wood to overlay them with gold. Insert the poles in the rings on the sides to carry the ark. The poles are to remain in the rings of this ark; they are not be removed. This is a holy, holy, holy furniture. The ark is sacred. Ark is most holy. The poles are there for carry so that you will not touch the ark itself. Remember, if those of you who know your Bible story, then when David was moving the ark and back to to Jerusalem, someone reached out to touch the ark and to what we call steady it, and he was struck dead because that is violating the sacredness. Okay. But you ask, when the Philistines took the ark, they handled it and all that. And now, so there's nothing magical about the ark. Okay. The ark had only significance for the people of God. And the people of God is to treat it as holy. There's no such some kind of a magical electricity, things like that. But for God's people, not to respect the ark. Okay. And there will be severe consequences. But the Philistines, that is what we call a different kind of a situation. But they have a problem. They took the ark and put it in their temple, and their gods fell down every morning. So there's a judgment of God upon them. So the ark is very sacred. So the poles are there to remain, and the rest of the furniture will also have to be carried also at poles. And but the poles were not what we call to remain in the rings of those things. Only the ark. They are not. Then put the tablets of the covenant law in the ark. Now, what is this? This chest, okay? And basically, it's a very important piece of furniture. And if you go back, you try to see some comparison in the ancient Near East. And when the king and in his throne room, when they sit down, and in front of him, there is this a similar kind of chest, and where what we call the agreements that we have with the conquered peoples, that kind of a thing. Okay, so the tables of the covenant. This is the covenant law that Moses said, and God says, "I'll give to you." You put it inside. Later, you'll find there were other things. The manna was put inside, and the Aaron's, but they were later late instructions. But right now, the tablets of the covenant law. They make a atonement cover. The King James say this is the mercy seat. All right. But I think the mercy seat is a much older understanding. atonement cover is much better translation. Make an atonement cover of pure gold. Same dimensions in terms of what we call 2.5 cubits long and half a cubit wide. Of course, how thick it is not mentioned. Make 2 cherubim out of hammered gold on ends of the cover. Make 1 cherub on one end, a second cherub. Make the cherubim one piece at 2 ends. The cherubim are to have their wings spread upward, overshadowing the cover, and the cherubim, the face started looking towards the cover. Place the cover of the ark and put the tablets, the law, put in the tablets of the covenant law I give to you. And above the cover, between the cherubim that is over the ark of the covenant law, I will meet with you. See, above the cover, I will meet with you and give you the command, my commands for Israel. Now, what is this ark? Older theologians, older scholars have thought that have seemed to say the ark is like the throne of God. Yeah, maybe, and that's why there's a mercy seat. You know, that is the throne, you have a seat, the mercy seat. So the ark represents the throne. I think more recent scholars have said no. If you read carefully the Old Testament, and the ark probably is the footstool of God, not his throne. Okay, and the temple might be a representative of God's dwelling, but God's throne is in heaven, and but his footstool, okay, where his feet touch the earth, is at the ark. Okay, his contact point with us is at the ark, and then above the mercy seat or above the atonement cover, and that the atonement cover is, there will be what we call and blood and put on it and things and consecrated. That is where God will meet the people of God. So this is God's footstool rather God's throne and things like that. I think that is a much better way to see the ark. So above the cover, with the cherubim, there's over the covenant law. Of course, there are requirements to make sure that this is how God will meet. Especially, God will only meet the high priest. I will meet you with you and give you all my commands for Israel. That is the ark. The next day is a table. The table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long, 1 cubit wide, half a cubit. Overlay with gold molding, make a round rim of gold, and put 4 rings on the table and fasten 4 rings where the 4 legs are. The rings are to close the rim for poles to carry the table. Make the poles, and you'll notice that there was no instructions that the poles are to remain and then to be removed. Some say it is assumed. No. I think very carefully what is not mentioned is not mentioned. Okay, make plates of and dishes of pure gold, pitchers, bowls, and so there is a table. See, and a table, and they put the presence of the bread on this table before me at all times. More instructions are given in Leviticus and how to do this, but this is the table where you put the bread of God's presence. Okay, this will show that God is present there. When you have food on the table, you know that someone is living there. Okay, so it is a kind of situation that God stays there, God lives there, dwells there. This is God's house. Okay. Then make a lampstand, pure gold, hammer with shaft and make up lights. All there are no dimensions given about the lampstand, the menorah. Okay, there are 6 branches extend, 3 on one side, 3 on the other side. 3 cups of like almond flowers and buds and blossoms on one branch, 3 on the next branch, and the same on all 6 branches. And the lampstand, there are 4 cups shaped like the central one, and each one bud will be on that, and so on and so forth. Then make 7 lamps and set them up so it will light up space in front of it. And the big trimmers and the trays are pure gold. Now, these are the most important, and all the most important elements of furniture is made of overlaid with pure gold. Of course, the acacia wood. and for the table and the chest and the ark. But the lamp is not that kind of furniture, so it's made of pure gold. The rest, the two other equipment or furniture is overlaid with gold, probably very generously, not a thin layer of gold foil or things like that. Okay, but see that you make them according to the pattern I show you on the mountain. Very important. Okay, all right. Let me stop here. Anyone has any questions? 1 talent of gold is used for the lampstand. Okay, about 75 pounds or 34 kilos, and according to NIV translators estimation. The lamp and to many modern scholars, even to ancient Jewish rabbis, looks like a tree. And you look at the menorah, it looks like it's shaped like a tree. And some would think that it's meant to symbolize the tree of life that is found in the Garden of Eden, okay, and give light and things like that. And definitely for very practical purposes, you need lighting in the holy place, and so the lamp provides that. And but spiritual meaning, okay, some saying is a light. So you have the bread, you have the light, you have the footstool. This is God's house. Okay. Questions? Comments? Anybody? Okay. If none, we will go on. The next thing is the tent, the tabernacle. So make a tabernacle with 10 finely twisted linen, purple, scarlet, with cherubim woven in by a skilled worker. All the curtains same size, 28 cubits long, 4 cubits wide. Join 5 of the curtains together. Do the same with the 5, and then make loops of what we call blue material to the edge, and do the same with this, and make 50 loops of curtains, and then make gold clasps to fasten them together. To visualize the tabernacle, the tabernacle has what we call covering. It's a tent, and there are 4 layers on that tent. The bottom layer, which is the nearest, what we call closest to God, has to be curtains of fine linen, blue, purple, scarlet, with cherubim woven into it by a skilled worker. And this represents a very holy kind of a thing. And they are fastened and make 2 sheets, probably, and to make it easy for carrying and to install whatever it is. And probably that is, I would say, the practical reason. But there's also what we call spiritual reason and scholars think that, or Jewish rabbis think that have 2 sections and they are joined together. Basically, talks about unity of God's people, things like that. Okay. Then this is the bottom level, so that the tabernacle is one whole unit. Okay, is a covering for the tabernacle. Then make curtains of goat hair and 10 over the tabernacle, 11. Okay, altogether. The lower part is 10. The second layer is 11, and they are the same size, 30 cubits long, 4 cubits wide. They are 2 cubits, what we call, longer than what we call the linen is 28 cubits. The goat hair is 11 called, and 30 cubits, so it's slightly longer. Join the 5 curtains on one set and the 6 curtains on the other side, 6 on the another set. Fold the 6 curtains double in the front of the tent, so double up the 6 curtains, so it becomes, and make 50 loops and 50 bronze clasps a loop. And here, the second layer, instead of gold, you have bronze, less expensive, less what we call, and significant in that sense. And for the length of the curtains, the half curtain that's left over is to hang over the end of the tabernacle. Okay, so there is the length of the tabernacle that is to go down to cover the end. The 10 curtains will be a cubit longer on both sides because it is 30 cubit. Now the length and is your sideways because the width is where it is joined together to call. So if you read, sometimes the length and the breadth get a bit mixed up, and the length is with sideways, hang over. So what is left aside will and cover it, and then you have and make a tent. For the tent, a covering of ram skin dyed red, and over that, a covering of durable leather. Okay, so this durable leather is a fine leather, and as I will say, is waterproof. So the tent is waterproof, no leaking inside, no rain comes inside and inside. So there are 4 layers: the linen, that is with what we call woven twisted linen with blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, very intricate, with cherubim that is and woven into it. Then goat hair and more sturdy and 11th. And then you have ram skins, and then you have dugong, and or some say just maybe another type of leather, things like that, and which is waterproof. So that is the covering for the tabernacle. Then you make frames of acacia wood so you just can't wrap it. You must wrap it on frames. Each frame is 10 cubits long, a cubit wide, 2 projections set in parallel. Make all the frames in this table. Make 20 frames from the south side, and 40 silver bases to go under it. And then you have north side the same. Make 6 frames at the end, and then make 2 frames for the corners, one on one side, one on the other side. So there are 8 frames. And on this, so the corner has to be stronger. And there are double up from the bottom all the way. So there are altogether 8 frames and 16 silver bases, 2 under each frame. Then make crossbars for the acacia wood. 5 frames on one side and 5 on the other side, and 5 frames for the west side. Okay, the east side is the entrance, so there's no frame there. All right, and overlay the frames with gold and make gold rings to hold the crossbars, and set up the tabernacle according to the plan I show you on the mountain. There is a debate among scholars as to what the upright frames are. If you see some of the videos and based on the older Jewish, they are almost solid and wood. And but if you do that, some will say that is very impractical, and basically that was to make it very heavy to transport. And of course, they have a lot of oxen to do that. But modern scholars think that they are not solid frames. They are what we call framework, like in a door framework kind of a thing. Some say that it is also kind of crisscross, and there is no consensus on that. I think that there are more frames, and they are just basically to provide and the structure, and for them to lay the curtains over, and in that sense, to put the curtains over the 4 curtains and over coverings on that. Okay, so that kind of a thing. Again, set up the tabernacle according to the plan I show you on the mountain, verse 30. Then make a blue curtain, a curtain of blue yarn, finely twisted, and cherubim, with cherubim woven into it by a skilled worker. Hang it on gold coats and and hooks on 4 posts of acacia wood. So there is to be a separation from the most holy place to the holy place, and this is the curtain. The curtain will separate the holy place from the most holy place, and put the atonement cover on the Ark of the Covenant in the most holy place. Place a table of the tabernacle on the north side of the tabernacle and put the lamp on the opposite side. Then for the entrance of the tent, make a curtain, blue, purple, scarlet, twisted fine, but no cherubim. And this is the work of an embroiderer. Okay, there are two different words. This is a skilled worker, and do the cherubim. This is your master and worker. Okay, the sifu, and this is the bachelor or whatever, expert and things like that. But a good person. They make hooks, and this is for the curtain and for the what we call the tabernacle, right? So let me stop here and show you what it might look like. Okay. All right. Then you can ask your questions. Okay. Fine. Okay. Okay. All right. So you have the ark here, what we call the tabernacle here. This is from a commentary that I'm using. And so forget about the A, B, things like that. And these are references to his notes. So you have the ark that is inside the most holy place. Basically, you have is 10 cubits square. You have the altar of incense, which is not mentioned yet. And you have the lampstand, the bread on the north side, and the lampstand on the south side. Okay. And that is the east, and that is the west. So table for the bread. This is the courtyard. Is how it looks like here. Okay, we haven't have the instruction for altar of incense or the other stuff. These are the most holy place. 10 cubit square, 10 by 10, 20 by 10. So it is double the space of this one. And say, if you want to check out, you can calculate the measurements and see that they are pretty accurate in this stuff. Okay. So any questions up here? Mio asked whether we have pictures of the ark, and I decided not to give you any pictures here because all the pictures I found on the internet that is available, and also the pictures on the various commentaries and books and dictionaries that have different ways to envision the tabernacle. Some have this way, some have that way. Albert and years ago, you all tried to do a model ark, and I don't know how you envision it, but probably you have one way. But there are different ways. You can go to Google and type and Moses Tabernacle. You'll find different pictures, and you can see for yourself. Okay, so but basically, just basically blueprint will be, I think, just sufficient for us here. Okay. So, any questions?
Pastor, I just have a question. Maybe I'm jumping the gun. Okay. The Temple of Solomon and the Temple of Herod they are fashioned after the tabernacle.
Yeah, they are fashioned, but they are much, much larger.
But in terms of measurements of the holy place and the most holy place?
Much, much larger.
So which means that they are not actually following the measurements as in Exodus.
They are not a tabernacle, so they are basically there were no instructions given how they are and to do. Was there instructions? Maybe I need to double check on that. But the Solomon's temple is twice as big, and the temple after what we call is basically the same, but not as luxurious, and maybe even smaller. And then Herod enlarged, and the temple, Herod's temple, and in consultation with the rabbis, in consultation with the priesthood, and Herod didn't simply have his own. He was very religiously and respectful of how to build a temple. He don't want to make. He already caused a lot of problems with other things, but in terms of religion, he wants to make sure that everybody who is important is consulted. Maybe just like Malaysia, you know, there are a lot of laws, there are a lot of regulations. There may be a lot of people angry, but when it comes to Islam, they consult the imams and ustads and all these and people who are the religious experts. So you cannot do that, and so you cannot so in that sense and definitely the tabernacle has to be portable. You cannot build Solomon's temple in the desert and carry it around. It's impossible to do that. You cannot build Herod's temple and carry it around. It must be significantly glorious to extent, but it must also be functional and portable. That is to be accepted. Okay, you cannot overbuild it. Overbuild it, you'll find it cannot carry it. Okay. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Okay, then the follow-up question.
Yeah.
There have been many talk, I wouldn't call it prophecy, that in the last days the temple will be rebuilt.
I don't think so, lah.
Yeah, I mean logically it's not, but which temple will it be fashioned? Solomon's temple or Herod's temple?
I don't know. I don't know. You have to consult then those and the third temple and committee or association. I saw some of the things that they do is very massive.
Yeah.
Uh, even I don't think even in Solomon's temple have those kind of, or Herod's temple have such big menorahs and things like that. It is a mega size.
I mean, I've been up to the Temple Mount a couple of times, but the thing is that space, it has to be grand. I mean, looking at the state of Israel, if they do make it.
Yeah. Even Herod's temple, I'm not too sure. See, basically, measurements in those days, the measurement today changes, and it's not be exact. They don't use inches or meters. They use cubits. They use things like that, and it's not exactly. And nobody knows exactly what is 1 cubit. We say roughly 18 inches. Okay, that is that, and definitely it will have to be. They will make sure that it's proportionate. They will make sure that it symbolizes something like the tabernacle. And so if you make it bigger, it must be bigger proportionate. It cannot be 10. It must be square. It must be, and the holy place must be twice the size of the most holy place, and the courtyard and will be proportionately bigger, and things like that. And there'll be. If you ask architects and contractors, they will know how to say that. It must look proper, lah. Huh? And I would think so that'll be the way it is. But personally, I don't think that it was God's purpose for them to build a third temple. Jesus is our temple.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Pastor.
Okay. To build a temple, they have to destroy the mosque.
Yeah.
And the dome.
And the communities around the Temple Mount, which are primarily Muslims.
Not all Jews are. Say the people who want to build a temple is a very small minority. Most people don't think, and when the Messiah comes, he can do whatever he wants. Okay, and that's how the Jews were there. But to build a temple for the Messiah, they will say it's blasphemous.
Okay, thank you about that.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Okay.
Pastor, the lampstand is 34 kg of pure gold.
Yeah.
That is something like 20 million ringgit,
Yeah.
If I steal, I will steal the lampstand.
You can strike you dead. You dare touch God's things, okay. Well, then the Babylonians took everything and probably burn everything down and or melt everything, and it's expensive. This is the house, this is the house of God. You can't change everything. So basically, you're talking about the whole nation of Israel, and brought their gold and things like that. So a big and one talent of gold, okay, to build the lampstand. So it is, I don't know how, then 75 pounds and how big it is. I no imagination, but it's still not as heavy as you, right?
He's mentioned 34 kg.
34 kg.
Kg,
you are?
I'm 85 kg.
Half your size. Okay. All right. Now that is basically that section 10. Maybe I'll do one more chapter and then we'll stop. Okay. Then next section here is the outer court. Build an altar of acacia wood 3 cubits high, square, 5 cubits long, 5 cubits wide. Make a horn on one of each sides. If you go to Google and Google type horned altars, you will find that archaeologists have discovered a number of horn altars in that part of the world. Okay, what the horn means, I don't know. Strength, or basically it is have a functional to kind of to set to tie the burnt offering things that whatever it is. So the horns of the altar and a one piece overlaid with bronze. Make all of the utensils of bronze. So this is outside the court, no longer gold. So it's bronze. It's pots and remove it, ashes, all this. Then make a grating. It is a hollow. Okay. Verse 8, make the altar hollow out of boards. And it is been made for you just as it was shown on the mountain. So it's a hollow altar. It is not a solid altar. There is a grating. Okay. And grating, make a grating, verse 4 for it. A bronze network and put a bronze rings over the four corners. This is where they will burn the offering, and one scholar says that this is ridiculous. You can't have a wooden altar and there's overlaid with bronze and burnt and offerings and still, but scholars and other scholars, no, it's possible. The bronze and the way it is function will disperse the heat and all that. And then some will say that because it's hollow, they can fill it with stones and with what we call with stones and earth into the hollow of it, so that whatever it is. We haven't given, so it brings up quite a lot of questions of how this works, but there is a bronze altar. Okay, the bronze altar is 3 cubits high, quite high, and so you have 3 cubits high. That is about 4.5 feet high, and is 5 cubits long, 5 cubits wide. So it's about 7 feet long, 7 feet wide, and long and wide. So it's quite a big one. So then make wood poles for acacia wood and overlay them, and the poles are inserted on 2 sides when they're carried. And again, make sure it is made the way you were shown on the mountain. Always use refrain. Don't improvise. What you do, Moses, make sure it is what you see on the mountain. That is the altar. Then make a courtyard for the tabernacle, south side 100 cubits long. Have curtains of finely twisted linen. There are no what we call cherubim, or it's best a plain white linen, and 20 poles and bronze poles and silver bases. The north side 100 cubits long, curtains, 20 poles and things like that. And the west side same thing. And the west side 50. And then the north side, the south side. The north side and the south side is the same. Then there are 15 curtains, 15 cubits long on the one side of the entrance with 3 poles and all that. And then basically, and for the entrance to the courtyard, you will have what we call curtain of blue, purple, twisted work of embroidery. No cherubim, okay, because cherubim is the guardian to God's entrance, God's presence. So the cherubim is basically then surrounds what we call the most holy place and the holy place on the top. And so then all the other articles and are used are to be and are bronze. So other called not gold, they are bronze. Now someone mentioned or asked a question, how come iron not used? Okay. Iron then probably is an instrument of death, and therefore it is not used. Iron is used in those days as weapons, solely for weapons. Bronze, yes, also used for as weapons, and but bronze is also used for utensils and other things. So it's not totally. In time, bronze and weapon and iron replace bronze altogether. So iron is not suitable for a place that symbolizes life and not violence. So iron is never used in the construction of the Jerusalem Temple of Solomon. Iron tools are not used. Okay, there are nothing that used with iron tools. So iron somehow have a negative and symbolism for the Israelite people, or as far as God is concerned, it's not, and it's basically an instrument of violence and things like that. Right? Now, make the oil, the lamps, and press oils and for so the light of the lamps to be kept burning, and outside. Now here you'll find that some says this section and is the transition towards what we call basically the tent of meeting. Okay. Before this verse, basically the tabernacle is supposed to be God's dwelling place. Now you have the tabernacle seen as a tent of meeting. So command the Israelites, all lamp keep burning, the tent of meeting outside the ark, and outside the ark, Aaron's sons are to keep the lamps burning from evening to morning. This is the lasting ordinance among the Israelites of all generations to come. Okay, so now you'll find that instructions to make the oil for the lampstand. Okay, inside, and it's supposed to keep burning. I think we'll stop here, and before we go to the priestly garments. So the first section, the first part of the instructions has to do with making the tabernacle. Okay, and in here. Okay, we have seen here the ark, then the courtyard. We have the altar. The basin not yet mentioned. Altar of incense not yet mentioned. Okay, so lampstand is supposed, and the oil, and then there is the entrance here, the curtains, and then there are basically the curtains, and the curtains are basically at a certain height, and that basically you cannot just see through it, but you can see the overall tabernacle, and basically you can see the visible tabernacle inside, the tent inside, and so it also visible to the side, but it's a sense of keeping what we call privacy as well as visibility, and not completely. Okay, so you want to see how it looks like, you can go Google up and say Wilderness Tabernacle, Tabernacle of Moses. You can see videos, you can see and images, you can see all that, and they are just our imagination. Some of them are more imaginative, and then others, and as you see whether it's a straight one, whether it's sloped one, things like that, because there's no measurements given to the outer coverings, but evidently the outer covering has to cover the entire tent completely, so to keep them from what we call the weather, the rain, things like that. Okay, all right, I think stop here, let you ask questions. We find that the where is nearest to God's holy place, you have the most expensive material, most intricate material, gold, and then you have the cherubim, you have the yarn, you have the expert and to do the embroidering, and if you move further out, you find that it is less, but still, and that be done very carefully, very exactly, and not what we call something that is done sloppily, things like that. So this is God's house. This is God's tabernacle. This is God's tent. Maybe they say God's house is not. This is God's dwelling place. Mishkan. Okay. God says, I will basically dwell with you. This is God's dwelling place. So this, in a sense, tabernacle is the grace of God, the mercy of God, that God is no longer up in heaven, in a certain sense remote, but God dwells among his people. He makes his presence among his people. Okay. And then you find that the people then rebel against God by worshiping the golden calf, and God wants to cancel the whole project. And Moses intercedes. Okay. All right. So you
Pastor, I have this thinking. These are slaves coming out from Egypt. How would they be able to afford all this gold and all this fine architecture
they demand.
materials?
Remember when before they left Egypt, and they were told, go to your neighbors and demand all those materials that I need. So everybody went, and so the Egyptians, God gave them favor with the Egyptians, and favor, the future favor. So take, whatever, take. They took everything. They basically plundered Egypt and things like that. And if you consider that how many hundreds of thousands of people were there, so to build one tent, and even if one person took some, and so you have, if you trust the number of the people, 600,000, and not unbelievable. Okay. Now, okay, let me stop here.